I recently discovered that 87% of internships in Australia are unpaid. And so I thought I'd compile a list of 5 tips to help you secure a paid internship. I can guarantee for some of you, if you follow all of these tips, that you're definitely going to get a paid internship because they are the same tips that work for me. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Marcel. I make videos about software engineering and the tech industry. This is also a new channel, so if you like any of the content that you see here, feel free to like, subscribe, share, whatever else you do on YouTube. All of that, I would very much appreciate it. I just want to start by saying that companies that offer paid internships usually want to train you up and give you a full-time offering at the end if you do well. So that means if you're not ready to go into the workforce straight away, it's good to let your employer know quite early on. One last thing I want to mention before we get started with the video is I've created a bonus resource that you can use to help you get a paid internship that I've revealed at the end of this video. So feel free to stick around till then. The first step in finding a paid internship is just play the listing game. This means going to Google, typing in your role and paid internship, and apply for every single listing that you see. If it's not your first choice, or it may not interest you, or it might be a little bit inconvenient for you, still apply for it because casting the net wide early on will definitely increase your chances of receiving an offer. The reason I say starting with this trick is because it's kind of like the best case scenario. Even if you follow everything else and you don't get an offer, you might get one of these offers that you might not wanted originally, but it still might be a paid internship, which is better than nothing. Another point to playing the listing game, I would say, is aim for the big tech companies. The reason I say that is big tech often has guaranteed paid internships and they pay extremely well. Look at Google, $63 an hour, $74 for Nvidia, and even Roblox is doing $62 an hour. That is insane, right? Another reason to apply to big tech early on is because their wait times is extremely long. It'll probably be like 3 months until you hear anything back from them after applying, so it's just good to get that process in early. The final reason to apply to big tech is because they often offer remote roles. Usually this means remote within the same country, but there's no harm in applying, stating your case, and just saying you're extremely enthusiastic and want to have a go. They'll probably consider you even if you're not in the home country. Now, the major downside with applying to big tech and playing the listing game is it's extremely competitive. And it's because it's the easiest option. Most people, when they're looking for a job or an internship, do this exact process. Just apply and hope they get in. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, the second point on this list is to consider startups. Now, when you apply to an internship, people usually don't consider startups that much because they think perhaps, it might not be as good experience as a bigger company, or they might not have the budget to hire you and give you a paid position. And that can sometimes be the case, but a little trick I found when applying for internships is look for startups that have recently raised capital. If they've recently raised capital, that means they've got a sudden influx of money that they can spend and use to grow the company. And usually the best way to grow is to hire good talent. So if you can find companies that have recently raised, and even if they don't have a certain position available for an internship, just messaging them and saying that you want experience in the industry, you like their startup or whatever it may be, you might have a high chance of getting a paid internship. One trick I use to find my current internship is to go to websites that talk about recent startup raisings and funding rounds. So if you're in Australia, for example, there's this website called Smart Company that I often read, and they often talk about startups that have raised. So here we have 9 startups that have raised over 100 million this week, which is pretty crazy. Quite recent as well, December 1st. And so you could go through this website, write down each startup you see here, look up who has founded them or who does the hiring, and reach out to them. Obviously, depending on the country you're in, your sources are going to be different, but I know here TechCrunch in the US covers a lot of different startup raises, so you could go there as well. The point overall here is that you have free access to a bunch of different information that tells you which companies have a sudden influx of capital that they could use to potentially hire you. The third point on this list is to look beyond the listings. So we started out with, playing the listing game, looking at startups and applying to big tech. The next part to do, and I think is the most important, is to kind of create your own position. What I did when I was looking for an internship was choose like 10, 15, 20 companies that I found interesting and wanted to work for. Look up who their hiring manager is, or even who the founder is if it's a smaller company. Reach out to them on something like LinkedIn, or maybe if you have their email, then do that. Cold message them and just be polite and say, hey, I'm a student or I'm looking to transition into the industry. I'm really passionate about this space. I have X amount of experience. I was wondering if there was a certain position that was available to get some workplace experience in your company. They probably won't respond. They'll probably say no, but they might see a, younger, passionate person who's just approached them. And oftentimes that's a lot better than someone who has just applied and not done any of the extra work at all. For example, the company that I'm working at now didn't offer any internship positions when I first started. So I took the steps to kind of introduce myself and create my own role for that company. Now, the fourth point on this list is engaging with your community. And I've broken this down into 3 sub-points, starting with attending networking events. Now, by attending networking events, you're meeting people in the industry. And what you can do is you can just pitch yourself the entire time. Like, obviously, don't make it awkward and don't make it forced, but go along, talk to people who might be at companies you want to work for and be like, hey guys, I'm really excited about this space. I really love this industry. I saw your company does this. This is cool. Like, what do you do? And by doing that, you're showing that you're proactive. You're coming along to this industry event, and also that you're passionate about your space and you're kind of directly going out there and kind of creating a position for yourself. Not only will this help you increase your chances of getting a paid internship, but it also expands your network and potentially helps you get a job later down the track anyway. Now, the second sub-point of engaging with your community is looking for online communities and platforms that may be related to your industry. When I looked for my internship, I literally typed into Google early work for students. And what came up was an online community called Early Work. And if you're in Sydney and in the startup scene, you'll probably know a lot about Early Work already. They're essentially a community for connecting students and employers and startups all together and creating a nice ecosystem and community for people to chat and share ideas. After playing the listening game for like 2 months, I received no offers. But as soon as I engaged in this online community and introduced myself, I told them what I was looking for. I told them my skills that I had. I got like 3, 4, even 5 offers in my email or LinkedIn messages the next day talking about, oh, what kind of internship are you looking for? What position would you like? All these kind of questions that were hot leads really into finding a paid internship, which I had nothing before. And this ties back into the previous point of networking. So you're doing the exact same thing as you would at a networking event, just online. Now, the last point I want to add about engaging with your community is to ask people for coffee chats. Just say you're a growth person and you don't know how to get into the industry. What I would do is look up companies that you find interesting, or perhaps you've seen on LinkedIn or something like that, or nearby in your city. Look at the people who work there, so all the growth people or even the managers, and add them on LinkedIn. Just be like, hey, do you want to go for a coffee chat? I'm a student, or I want to transition into this industry. I'm very passionate. I want to learn more about what you do so I can see if it's right for me. By doing this, you are unlocking a wealth of knowledge about that industry, about that position, about how to get into the position and how they went about their journey, so you can kind of copy and paste some of the things they did to get where they are today. Another side point on this is always buy them the coffee or beer or whatever it is, just because, it's polite. You ask them to come out. It's standard. Good job. Now, the final point I want to mention about getting a paid internship is apply for scholarships. Obviously, like big tech listings, scholarships are very competitive. They're not going to be easy to get into, but you never know what scholarships are out there until you start researching and applying for some. For example, I have 2 friends at uni right now who are doing women in tech scholarships throughout their entire degree. And with that, they get industry placements into some pretty cool companies. So taking the 30 minutes it takes to research all the scholarships that may apply to you or that your university or community offers might unlock possibilities that you never knew existed. I think you'll notice with all the 5 points that I mentioned, they all tie into being proactive. Obviously, the tech industry is very competitive, so being proactive and showing you're willing to put in the extra mile in these things will make you more competitive in the job search and help you get a paid internship. That wraps up my 5 tips of getting a paid internship. I hope these help you. Now, it's easy for me to leave you with these tips and you just go about your day. What I thought I'd do, if you watched my last video, you would have seen that I'm a big Notion user. Notion is just an app to help you keep track of your life and create documents and all that kind of stuff. So I've created a free Notion template to run through all of the steps I mentioned and kind of check them off as a to-do list. For example, one of the main features here is a huge table sorted with a bunch of different fields of the internships that you've applied for, so you can keep track going forward. And if you want to get access to this free document, the link is in the description below. So I hope I've provided you some value with these tips to help you get a paid internship. If you think I've missed any tips here or there's a certain way that you got a paid internship, feel free to let me know in the comments. I would love to see it. If you enjoyed this video as well, I really believe you'll enjoy my previous video, A Realistic Day in the Life of a Software Engineer. So feel free to check that out as well. Anyway, guys, I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye, guys.